Today's topic is a bit unusual, but I think it's often unexplored. This topic is the idea of cooperation versus competition in terms of how you think of your relationship with your classmates. For some of you, this may seem very strange, but for others, it might have been something you've considered a lot. The reason for this discrepancy is likely to be contextual. In some university or college programs, almost or all of the grades are handed out on the basis of a grading curve or policy where every student's grade is relative to each other. In other words, you don't get a 60% grade for answering 6 out of 10 questions correctly. Your final grade depends on how many the other students got correct and what the faculty has set as the mean or median grade. So in these sort of programs, where your grade is largely determined by how well you do relative to your classmates, it becomes natural to inquire what sort of relationship you want to have with them, when there are only a set amount of top grades like A's to be given out, and these grades are largely influential on your career opportunities. Should your approach be to cooperate with your classmates or to compete against them? Of course, neither is an absolute. If your mindset is to focus on cooperation with classmates, as much as you can facilitate and assist them with their studies and success, they are still their own individuals, as are you. And so, at the end of the day, you write your own exams and papers, and they write their own. And the grades that you're given are your own respectively. The same can largely be said of a student with a competitive mindset, which is that even if you don't want to assist or facilitate the studies of other students, you're still friendly and cordial with them. You're not trying to sabotage them, you just don't want to give them any advantages because it's a competition. If we take a very simplified perspective, it would make sense for you to take the competitive approach. After all, if your grades are determined on how well you do relative to each other, and then if you take the time and effort to assist your classmates, thereby leading them to do better in their courses, then their scores have risen relative to yours, and your grade will actually be reduced. And so you would conclude that by helping other classmates, you're harming your own grades, and by extension, your career opportunities. But of course, the reality is much more complex than this simplified perspective, and these complexities are why I'm going to advise you to always take the cooperative approach instead. First off, practically speaking, if you do work with and assist other classmates, the net results aren't necessarily going to be their scores going up relative to yours. For one, a lot of times when you work together, not only are you helping others learn, but you also end up learning things yourself. There are countless times when in study groups with students that I was working with for the first time, I learned a bunch of different ideas, tips and tricks, approaches, opportunities, software and websites, all of these things that I had no idea about before. It's one of the great things about college and university of bringing together students from different backgrounds to learn together about common interests. The point here is that as smart as you might be, don't think that if you're to work together with other students, the learning or net benefit will only go one way. It is more likely that all the classmates will learn something new and be better off. If these students have improved scores as a result of working together, then their grades relative to each other will remain the same. In fact, the only students whose grades will suffer as a result of remaining the same while the others have increased will be the students who did not work with their classmates, aka the competitive approach students. Now, aside from this practical reality, let's even assume that for whatever reason, you wouldn't learn anything by working with your classmates. You are just that far superior to them in your studies. Even in that scenario, I would still advise you to be cooperative rather than competitive, because the long-term benefit of doing so will outweigh the short-term benefit of not doing so. What I mean by this is that though your grades are important in college, particularly for being able to secure internships, jobs, or admissions to other programs, they are only one aspect of your career. They are also largely only important in the short term. As you're likely to be aware, your academic performances become less and less relevant the farther removed from college you are. And even more crucially, the vast majority of highly sought-after positions are filled as a result of the networking and connections to insiders of an organization rather than applications from outsiders to the organization. This is to say that even if by not taking the cooperative approach with your classmates, you end up with a higher grade than you would have if you did, because you didn't help their scores rise, the benefit of that higher grade on your overall career is still not worth it. And it's not worth it because it is outweighed by the benefit of building connections and relationships with your classmates. Connections and relationships that are made easy and solidified by cooperating and studying together. You don't know where your classmates will end up in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let's say you end up working somewhere after graduating and you absolutely hate it. But you hear about an organization that some of your classmates work at, which appears to be fascinating work and great pay and benefits, and you would love to work there. Though having good grades on your transcript would help your application for that position, undoubtedly the benefit of having a good relationship with those classmates would be much more beneficial, because they can recommend you, they can give you insight about what the recruiters are looking for, what worked well in their interviews, and so on. This is just one hypothetical scenario, but the larger point is that the realm of possibilities of all the useful ways that you might cross paths with your classmates in the future, even though it is long-term, is much more important than any harm you might do to your grades by helping them. Now, could you have your cake and eat it too? Which is to say, is it possible to not help your classmates improve their grades in any way, but also maintain great relationships with them for the purpose of future networking? Perhaps through building recreational or social connections rather than academic cooperation? It is possible, but it's also limited. With social, recreational, or extracurricular events or groups, only some subset of your classmates are going to be interested in participating. But academically, you can build relationships with all your classmates potentially, because at the end of the day, that's what you all have in common. You're all enrolled in the same program or university. As you can tell, I'm a huge advocate for building relationships and building networks in your time at college and university. Even in the context where your grades are on a curve and all relative to your classmates, it doesn't change that. So in your academic career, always pick cooperation over competition. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Until next time.